General practitioners rarely talk about it directly, but the body can send alarming signals. If masturbation stops in adulthood, the consequences may be subtle but serious. This is not a matter of indecency, but a physiological fact, ignoring which is fraught with problems for the brain, heart, sleep, immunity, and self-esteem, not to mention sexual health. As a urologist with 30 years of experience, I have studied age-related changes, especially in the area of intimacy, hormones, and longevity. Neglecting sexual well-being in old age is a hidden threat because it is the key to overall health. Masturbation is not just child's play, but a powerful tool for maintaining prostate health, improving brain function, balancing hormones, and protecting against depression. Giving it up can cost more than it seems. In the next few minutes, we will look at what happens in the body when masturbation stops in old age. This information may change your perception of yourself and your health. Subscribe and turn on notifications to receive important tips on how to stay healthy and independent as you age. Leave 1 in the comments if this topic is close to you, or 0 if not. This will help me create content that is truly beneficial to your health. Let's start with the first and most ignored consequence: the impact on prostate health and urination. More than 30 years ago, when I started my practice, I could not imagine that many patients would talk about stopping sexual activity with age. I remember one man saying, "Doctor, I decided that I don't need it anymore." He was just over 70, he was healthy, but he did not understand why he had to get up at night to go to the toilet 4 or 5 times. He, like most men, did not know that regular ejaculation, even masturbation, is necessary to maintain healthy prostate function. The prostate is a living organ that expands and contracts, produces fluid, and, like any system, suffers from neglect. If it is not regularly stimulated and emptied, the fluid in the prostate can stagnate, creating ideal conditions for inflammation, swelling, and pressure, which interferes with urination and sexual function. This can manifest as a weak urine stream, a feeling of heaviness in the bladder, or a constant feeling of fullness. This is not just irritation, but early warnings. About 50% of men over 60 suffer from benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH, which can worsen due to chronic congestion in the prostate. If left untreated, this can lead to urinary retention, bladder infections, and a need for catheterization. That man I was talking about eventually needed surgery to relieve the pressure, which could have been avoided if we had taken care of it earlier with simple, regular procedures. Frequent ejaculation reduces the risk of accumulation, helps the prostate empty, and removes old fluid. Studies show that men who ejaculate at least 21 times a month have a significantly lower risk of prostate cancer. It is important to understand that this is not about obsession or returning to youth, but about function, about using biology to protect the body. By stopping masturbation, you're not just giving up pleasure, but putting yourself at risk of discomfort, irritation, and loss of control over urination. Some of my patients became afraid to leave the house because of bladder problems. Strong and confident men suffered from sleepless nights and anxiety due to a condition that could have been prevented or cured with regular self-stimulation. In addition, the psyche also suffers. Losing control over your body. You have to plan toilet breaks, fear long trips, and wake up at night every 2 hours, which undermines the sense of independence. Prostate problems are not only physical discomfort, but also a restriction of freedom. But that's not all. Problems that start in the prostate are not limited to it. The next consequence affects both the brain and the body, changing thoughts, emotions, and memory, sometimes irreversibly. Let's discuss what happens to cognitive function and mental clarity when self-stimulation stops. If you're still here and interested in this topic, put 1 in the comments. I recently consulted a man around 60 who complained not about energy or prostate, but about the fact that he stopped feeling himself. He said that he enters the room and forgets why he came, loses his train of thought in the middle of a sentence. He asked if this was just old age. I hear this question very often. Indeed, some cognitive changes are a natural part of aging. However, Most people do not realize that masturbation and other forms of sexual activity have a significant protective effect on brain function. During orgasm, the brain releases dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, neurochemicals closely associated with memory, concentration, and emotional control. They support the development and maintenance of neural connections, increase blood flow to the brain, and reduce levels of cortisol, a stress hormone that harms brain cells in excess. When you stop masturbating, especially for a long time, these natural chemical bursts that protect the brain become less frequent, which can weaken your mental advantage. Over time, it becomes more difficult to concentrate, process information, and feel motivated. This happens gradually. First, names are forgotten, then days, and then distrust of one's own judgment appears. Fear can grow in this doubt. I have seen patients fall into a downward cycle of anxiety and depression when their brains are simply deprived of chemical balance and stimulation. Men also experience a hormonal change. Levels of testosterone, a hormone associated with memory, decision-making, and energy, may decline faster. Testosterone is important not only for libido, but also for identity, strength of spirit, and clarity. Regular healthy ejaculation can help maintain and regulate testosterone levels with age. In some studies, a decrease in sexual activity in older people has been linked to early signs of dementia and cognitive impairment. I am not claiming that stopping masturbation causes Alzheimer's disease, but the brain becomes more susceptible when it is denied emotional release, stimulation, and hormonal support. It loses its resilience and rhythm. This fog can change lifestyle, interactions, thoughts, and self-perception. One person told me that he could no longer concentrate on playing chess and stopped attending his club. Another, a former educator, claimed that he felt empty every morning. These were not memory problems that needed to be treated with medication, but signs of a life torn from physical intimacy, even with oneself. The saddest thing is that this can be prevented. No expensive drugs or procedures are required. Sometimes it is enough to reconnect with your body and pay attention to it. The brain awakens when the body is stimulated. But a decline in mental acuity is just one factor. What's next? Let's look at how giving up self-intimacy can subtly lead to depression when emotional balance is disrupted and mood drops. These symptoms can be subtle, harmful, and difficult to discuss. I once treated a widower, a retired, otherwise healthy patient around 70, who came to me not because of physical illness, but because of an inexplicable condition. "I don't feel anything anymore," he said, looking me in the eye. No joy, no despair, just flat. After a pause, he asked, "Is this normal for my age?" I hear this question all the time. Blunting, disconnection, and a gradual fading of emotions, which many consider simply signs of aging, often have a deeper, physiological cause: loss of sexual stimulation, especially self-satisfaction. This is the reality. When you stop personal physical interactions with your body, your mental landscape may begin to change in subtle but significant ways. Masturbation is not only a physical act, but also an emotional release, a natural way to reduce stress. During orgasm, the brain releases powerful hormones such as oxytocin and endorphins, which are organic mood stabilizers that fight anxiety, tension, and depression. Excluding this release from your life puts you at risk of emotional numbness, which can develop into depression, especially in the presence of stress, loneliness, or sadness. I have watched this develop gradually after the loss of a partner, or because of the belief that it is no longer age-appropriate. A person stops masturbating, weeks and months pass. He becomes more reserved and quiet, loses interest in conversations and hobbies, sleeps more or less, appetite fluctuates. Grayness penetrates into life. The irony is that most people do not realize the connection. They lack a basic but important act of connection with their body, and they blame themselves, their age, or circumstances for emotional survival, rather than a lack of pleasure. Depression in older people often manifests not as sadness, but as exhaustion, impatience, alienation, or lack of drive. I can't count how many people I have helped simply by advising them to restore physical self-intimacy, although therapy and medication are also important. One man told me that he felt alive again after he started touching himself regularly for the first time in many years. This not only improved his mood, but reminded him that he is more than just a body that is about to shut down. He was still human. A part of him that he thought was lost forever was restored by this minor act. Masturbation in old age has nothing to do with shame, passion, or fantasies. It's about maintaining a healthy emotional system, about giving the body a reason to feel, about the importance of being present. By losing this connection, you risk not only sadness, but also loneliness, emotional deterioration, and, in some cases, a desire to live. But there are other consequences besides emotional ones. As the nights get longer and sleep becomes more intermittent, other hidden costs begin to increase, which can affect the immune system, memory, and the risk of developing serious diseases. Let's discuss how a lack of sexual release can deprive the body of the restorative deep sleep it so desperately needs. If you're interested in my thoughts, put 1 in the comments. Let's move on to point number 4, reducing sleep quality. I remember a man around 60 who had been suffering from insomnia for several months. He looked exhausted and depressed. "I fall asleep, doctor, but I wake up around 2 in the morning as if I had been shot out of a cannon. Then I just wait for the morning, looking at the ceiling." We did an examination. The tests were normal, there was no apnea. However, he looked away when I politely asked about his personal life. "That part of me is over," he mumbled. But it was this aspect, which he believed no longer existed, that could be the secret to what his body craved, a peaceful, restorative sleep. Sleep is more than just lying down with your eyes closed. This is a complex hormonal mechanism. After a certain age, most people forget about one of the most natural ways to induce deep sleep, orgasm. During orgasm, the body releases endorphins, prolactin, and oxytocin, the perfect chemical cocktail that the body naturally produces to transition the nervous system from stress to rest. At the same time, there is a sharp decrease in cortisol levels, the hormone that causes anxiety and alertness. Muscles relax, heart rate stabilizes, breathing slows down. You reach the optimal state for sound sleep. Now imagine that you completely exclude this process from your life for weeks, months, or even years. This is what happens when older people stop masturbating. The natural tool that the body once relied on is lost. What then fills the gap? Usually it's anxiety, anger, insomnia. Others accept fatigue as their new normal, while others resort to sleeping pills. But the consequences of inadequate sleep go far beyond fatigue. Prolonged sleep deprivation impairs immunity, accelerates cognitive aging, increases the risk of heart disease, and makes people more susceptible to anxiety and depression. It also increases the risk of falls, memory problems, and loss of independence in older people. I have witnessed the gradual departure of patients who used to lead active lives. They were simply too tired to function, not because of a serious illness. This is where things get really alarming. And it's not just a matter of physical exhaustion. Lack of sleep can disrupt hormonal balance, leading to further health problems. For example, it can affect the production of melatonin, a hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. Reduced melatonin levels have been linked to an increased risk of cancer, a weakened immune system, and accelerated aging. In addition, lack of sleep can exacerbate existing health problems such as diabetes and heart disease. It can increase blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and blood sugar levels, which increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. It can also weaken the immune system, making people more susceptible to infections and diseases. Therefore, if you're experiencing sleep problems, it is important to see a doctor to rule out any underlying medical conditions. But it is also important to consider restoring sexual activity, even if it is just masturbation. This could be a natural and effective way to improve sleep quality and overall health. Now let's move on to the last, but no less important, consequence of stopping masturbation in old age, the impact on your immune system. Put the number 1 in the comments section if you're still here and find this information useful. 5. Weakening of the immune system. I remember one patient, a woman around 70, who came to me with frequent urinary tract infections. She was otherwise healthy, but she seemed to be constantly fighting some kind of infection. We did all the tests, but we couldn't find any underlying cause. One day during a conversation, she mentioned that she had stopped having sex with her husband after his death several years ago. I asked her if she had been masturbating since then. She was embarrassed and said that she had never thought about it. I explained to her that sexual activity, including masturbation, can have a positive effect on the immune system. During orgasm, the body releases hormones, such as dehydroepiandrosterone, DHEA, which has been shown to enhance immune function. DHEA is a precursor to both estrogen and testosterone, and it plays an important role in maintaining a healthy immune system. It helps stimulate the production of immune cells, such as T cells and B cells, which are essential for fighting infections. It also helps reduce inflammation, which can weaken the immune system. In addition, sexual activity can help reduce stress, which can also weaken the immune system. When you're stressed, the body releases cortisol, which can suppress immune function. Sexual activity can help reduce cortisol levels and increase levels of endorphins, which have mood-boosting and stress-relieving effects. After I explained this to my patient, she decided to try masturbating. To her surprise, she found that it helped her feel better physically and emotionally. She also noticed that she had fewer urinary tract infections. This does not mean that masturbation is a panacea for all diseases, but it can be a useful tool for maintaining a healthy immune system, especially as you age. Therefore, if you want to stay healthy and strong as you age, don't neglect your sexual health. Masturbation can be a safe and natural way to support your immune system, improve sleep, boost your mood, and maintain mental clarity. In conclusion, stopping masturbation in old age can have a number of negative consequences for your physical and mental health. It can lead to reduced urinary function and prostate health, cognitive fog and reduced mental clarity, increased depression and emotional numbness, reduced sleep quality, and a weakened immune system. Therefore, if you want to stay healthy, happy, and independent as you age, don't neglect your sexual health. Masturbation can be a safe, natural, and enjoyable way to support your overall well-being. Remember that your body is a temple, and you should take care of it throughout your life. Don't let age or social norms dictate how you should live. Embrace your sexuality and enjoy the benefits of a healthy and active sex life. If you have any questions or concerns about your sexual health, don't hesitate to see a doctor. They can provide you with personalized advice and recommendations to help you stay healthy and happy for years to come. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was informative and helpful. If you liked it, please like and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on health and well-being. Many people overlook a simple way to improve their well-being, which is always available. It's not about drugs or trendy supplements, but about a natural process inherent in our body. Masturbation, often underestimated, can dramatically affect sleep quality. One of the patients shared that after returning to this practice, his sleep became as sound as it was 30 years ago. He admitted that he did not realize how important this release was for his body, and mistakenly took the need for it as signs of aging. Unfortunately, many people suffer in silence, not realizing that their biological needs are being ignored. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt completely relaxed? If sleepless nights have become commonplace, thoughts are racing, muscles are tense, and time is dragging on excruciatingly slowly, perhaps the solution is not in new medications or breathing exercises. Sometimes returning to the old rhythms familiar to the body can be the key to restoring harmony. Lack of sleep gradually undermines vitality and clarity of mind. Let's talk about what happens to blood circulation and pelvic floor muscles when intimate life fades away. Weakening of these muscles and deterioration of blood circulation can lead to unexpected problems. A few years ago, I operated on a 70-year-old retired firefighter who had always been proud of his physical fitness. He complained of mild urinary incontinence and pain in his hips and lower back, which prevented him from standing for long periods of time. He described it as a gradual destruction of the foundation of his body. The problem was in the silent deterioration of the pelvic floor, and not just in aging. And he was not alone in his problem. The pelvic floor muscles support the intestines, bladder, and genitals, forming the foundation of our body. Most people do not think about their existence until problems arise: erectile dysfunction, constipation, urinary incontinence, or pain when walking. Masturbation and other forms of regular sexual stimulation play an important role in maintaining the activity of these muscles. During orgasm and arousal, the pelvic floor muscles contract rhythmically, which is a kind of exercise for them. This maintains the connection between nerves and muscles, improves internal support, and increases blood flow to the lower body. This is not about achievements in bed, but about maintaining health. Regular masturbation keeps the muscles toned, preventing them from weakening. Without stimulation, nerve sensitivity decreases, tissues lose elasticity, and blood flow slows down. As a result, unexpected symptoms may appear: frequent urges to urinate, pain during movement, difficulty holding gases, or even slight incontinence after visiting the toilet. In men, this can lead to a decrease in sexual function, and in women, to discomfort, tension, and dryness, which hinders intimacy. Adults, once confident, begin to avoid social situations for fear of not coping with the bladder. I have seen people experience shame when sneezing or coughing, realizing that all this is related to neglect of blood circulation and muscle activity in the pelvic area. It is important to understand that ignoring this area is not only inconvenient, but can also lead to incontinence, falls, and loss of dignity. If the base of your body does not receive the necessary stimulation and support, you may have to rely on pads, special underwear, or plan your actions depending on the proximity to the toilet. The longer this continues, the more difficult it is to reverse the process. It saddens me that many people suffer in silence, not discussing these problems. They consider them a normal part of aging or are ashamed to talk about it. But it is important to understand that even at 70, 80 years and older, your body still needs care. Safe and regular intimate stimulation is one of the best natural ways to support its health without drugs and equipment. Restoring this connection is not just about getting pleasure. It's about restoring strength. Blood flows to where it is most needed, stimulating nerves and supporting the life of tissues. In addition to the tangible consequences, a lack of intimacy can affect the immune system and the body's cellular defenses. One of the most significant and often ignored benefits of orgasm is its effect on blood flow. Let's discuss how a lack of sexual activity can subtly weaken your immunity. One of my patients, a man around 60, who had always been in good health, came to me exhausted a few years ago. He had mild illnesses and prolonged colds 3 times during the season. He complained that he used to recover in a day or 2, and now every minor virus knocks him out of the rut for weeks. After excluding other possible causes, such as malnutrition, lack of sleep, and medication, I cautiously asked him about his sexual life. He smiled embarrassedly and shook his head, admitting that he had long abandoned this part of himself. He, like many others, did not know that masturbation and other forms of sexual activity directly affect the immune system. This is not just a metaphor, it is a biological fact. During sexual arousal and orgasm, the body releases biochemicals, including immunostimulating agents, as well as dopamine and oxytocin, which are responsible for good mood. For example, the level of immunoglobulin A, IgA, an important antibody that protects the body from bacteria, viruses, and diseases, especially those affecting the digestive and respiratory systems, increases sharply. In addition, endorphins are released, promoting healing and reducing inflammation. Imagine that this impulse is not there for months or years. One of the simplest and most natural defenses of the body begins to weaken. It's like removing the batteries from a smoke detector at a time when your immune system is already weakened. Even if you don't realize it immediately, your body will not react to emerging problems as it used to. I have observed this in real time. Patients who have given up intimacy often face exacerbations of chronic inflammation, slowed recovery, and frequent episodes of illness. Their body sends a clear signal about the problem, even if they cannot establish a connection. This goes beyond simply preventing diseases. Long-term disease prevention, cancer fighting, cardiovascular protection, and even wound healing are closely linked to the immune system. Regular sexual release promotes blood circulation, reduces levels of stress hormones such as cortisol, and maintains hormonal balance, which is necessary to maintain immunity. When this stops, a chain reaction is triggered. The body slows down and weakens, stress levels rise, inflammation increases, and sleep quality deteriorates. One 70-year-old woman told me that she had not touched herself for almost 5 years after her husband's death. After an open discussion of the connection between sexual activity and immunity, she decided to restore this connection. After a few months, she returned with renewed vitality and a sparkle in her eyes, stating that she felt more alive, as if her body was working with her again, not against her. This isn't magic. When the body receives the signals it needs, positive changes occur. These signals allow us to feel alive and capable. While they are easy to ignore or minimize, shame does not affect the immune system. It only responds to actions. Sexual stimulation, even when alone, is a powerful act, transmitting vitality to every cell in your body. However, neglecting self-intimacy can run even deeper, undermining your sense of self-worth. If you stop touching your body, you may gradually lose awareness of who you are. Let's explore how self-neglect can subtly erode your sense of value and how you can restore it. Losing a sense of self-worth, belonging, and connection to your body is a serious issue. I will never forget a conversation with a patient, a former school principal around 70 years old, always confident and witty. But during a routine checkup, I noticed a change in his demeanor. His eyes were dull, his shoulders slumped. He confessed that he no longer felt like he was living in his body. He felt like he was just going through the motions. That phrase stuck with me because what he described, though in different words, was familiar to many. I've heard it from both men and women. They had lost their sense of self-acceptance. Often, silence becomes the first step toward abandoning personal intimacy, which is deemed unnecessary, belated, or outgrown. But when you stop touching your body, you begin to lose contact with it slowly, imperceptibly, and sometimes permanently. Touching yourself is more than just pleasure. It's about feeling present in the moment. When you gently and privately stimulate your body, your nervous system receives a reminder that you are still alive, that you matter, that your body is not just a vessel you are waiting to leave, but an integral part of who you are. If this doesn't happen, something changes. A kind of psychological and emotional detachment develops. It becomes easier to ignore minor aches, stop looking in the mirror, accept that this stage of life isn't worth it. And of all the losses, this is the most dangerous, a decline in self-esteem. I have seen profound emotional numbness resulting from this detachment. Age becomes a source of shame. People avoid touch and even stop taking care of themselves. They stop eating properly, exercising, and dressing purposefully, believing that since this body no longer feels like mine, there's no point. One woman told me that after menopause, she stopped touching herself, stating, "I just stopped feeling like a woman, and the less I touched myself, the more I disappeared." This term disappeared struck me because many older adults who have stopped engaging with their physical selves experience just that. They don't just stop enjoying things. They become less themselves, less noticeable, losing their sense of vitality. It's important to understand that this doesn't have to be the case. Self-touch, to reclaim your body, is not the same as sexuality in your 20s. It's about respecting the life that remains within you. The goal is to say, I'm still here. I still have feelings. I'm still worthy of being seen, even alone, even in the comfort of my own home. By reconnecting with your body, you can begin to reverse this silent erasure. You remind yourself that aging is a natural part of life, that your value has not diminished with your youth. You are coming home to yourself, and that is perhaps the most restorative thing you can do. In conclusion, It's important to understand that each of these 7 consequences is serious on its own, but together they paint a more complete and pressing picture. I want to show you exactly what you risk and, more importantly, how you can regain control by restoring intimacy and recovering again. Reflecting on the years spent caring for elderly patients, I'm struck by the quiet, invisible losses they bear. In addition to the medical challenges they face, there are losses that are not visible on scans or in lab reports. A once confident man now avoids mirrors, and a woman who radiated happiness for years says she feels nothing in her body. They have also been taught that this is often what aging looks like. But I don't think so. Not for a minute. And I think you don't think so either, because this is the reality. The moment your sexual self is no longer cared for, the moment you give up on that aspect of your personality and body, a series of silent consequences begins. We discussed how stopping regular release can affect prostate and urinary health, how a lack of stimulation leads to brain fog and reduced mental acuity, and how a lack of physical intimacy can lead to sleep deprivation, melancholy, poor circulation, and even a weakened immune system. The most agonizing of all, perhaps, is how the loss of these intimate personal relationships with your own body can gradually erode your sense of value until you feel like you're no longer yourself. These are not trivial matters. These are not just signs of aging, but signs that you need to pay attention to your body, mind, and soul. I have had patients who sat across from me feeling numb, broken, and disconnected from the world. And I have seen the change in their eyes when they begin to reclaim this aspect of their lives. No one else is needed. Youth and perfect health are not prerequisites. Even now, especially now, all you need is permission, your permission to believe that you are worthy of connection. I know that many people avoid talking about this topic. Some feel shame. Others never knew that taking care of their sexual health after a certain age is acceptable. But I want you to hear this from a doctor who has accompanied hundreds of men and women on this journey. It's not just normal, it's necessary. Masturbation later in life is not indulging in weakness, but caring for identity, immune defense, emotional stability, hormonal balance, circulation, and mental clarity. It's not a luxury, but a kind of nurturing, a statement affirming your continued existence in this body and your continued responsibility for its health. One patient once told me that only when she touched this aspect of herself again did she realize how much she missed feeling like herself. That's the point, to feel alive, not just exist, not just get through the years, but live them with joy, dignity, and presence. Therefore, I urge you to think again if you have forgotten, buried, or condemned this aspect of yourself, to get back in touch, to remember that your body continues to listen, is still capable, is still worthy. Start modestly, with interest, with goodwill, but above all, start, because by deciding to take care of this aspect of yourself once again, you are reclaiming your life in addition to protecting your health. Therefore, if you have neglected this part of yourself, I urge you to reconsider your attitude. Remember that your body continues to listen. It is still capable and worthy of attention. Start small, with curiosity and benevolence, but most importantly, start by deciding to take care of this aspect of yourself. You will not only protect your health, but also regain the fullness of life. So, take the first step. Allow yourself to rediscover this part of yourself, remembering that taking care of your body is taking care of yourself as a person. It is an investment in your health, well-being, and sense of self-worth.